Unless you've been hiding under a rock for the past decade, you've heard a lot about drones. Military uses them for surveillance purposes and launching weapons. Civilians use them for things ranging from aerial cinematography to law enforcement to crop dusting. As domestic drones proliferate, the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration is starting to clamp down on their use. Love them or hate them, drones are here to stay. I'm Mike Brosh, and this is how the RC hobby industry got hit by the law of unintended consequences. The radio control, or RC hobby industry, is about to get hit with what many feel are overly restrictive regulations. If you know anything about RC aircraft, you know that the hobby's been around since the 1950s. In fact, RC aircraft have been in existence since long before the establishment of the US FAA. Now this begs the question, how did the RC hobby and the FAA manage to peacefully coexist for over 50 years? What's so different about today's hobby drones versus traditional RC aircraft? An RC aircraft enthusiast had to master two fairly complex skills before they could start to even engage in the hobby. First, they had to build the aircraft. In the old days, this meant building the aircraft virtually from scratch. Then after dozens upon dozens of hours of building the plane, you had to learn how to fly it. Now, there's a reason why pilots are generally held in fairly high regard. Flying is hard. It takes a lot of time and a lot of practice to learn how to do it safely. What frequently happens when an RC pilot is first starting to learn?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whoa!
Thus, traditionally, an RC pilot had to learn to fly by working with another experienced pilot. They had to be taught. Safety procedures, best practices, and the like were passed down from experienced pilots to newcomers. So the answer to the first question is that the RC hobby industry was effectively self-regulated. Practitioners were highly motivated to operate their aircraft in a very safe manner. They had a lot of sweat equity invested in their aircraft. An additional factor is that aircraft require runways for takeoff and landing. The flying fields were generally located well away from population centers. So what happened? Why does the RC hobby industry now have a problem with government regulation? Well, if you want a simple scapegoat, you can blame the microelectronics industry. The development of miniature gyros and accelerometers, along with tiny computers called microcontrollers, have enabled the development of drones that can, for the most part, fly themselves. There were two other technological developments as well. One was the development of lithium batteries that powered electric motors. Prior to this, you were stuck with very messy and noisy gasoline engines. The final high-tech wonder was the development of the multi-rotor platform. Quadrotors, hexacopters, octocopters, and the like all exploit the fact that with multiple pairs of counter-rotating blades, hovering flight is significantly easier to achieve than it is with a conventional helicopter. When you combine the multi-rotor platform with lithium-powered motors and a microelectronic control system, you end up with a machine that can be operated by almost anyone with just a modest amount of practice. Toy quadcopters can be purchased for less than $50. Most dangerously of all, however, you don't need someone to teach you in order to fly. You can quite easily teach yourself. This was the game changer. The two primary barriers to entry, aircraft construction and learning to fly, were removed. Another piece of high-tech wizardry was the development of so-called first-person view, or FPV systems. With FPV, a camera on the drone transmits a signal down to the operator on the ground. As a result, the operator can fly the drone as if they were sitting in the drone itself. Clearly, this has the appeal of giving the operator a sense of actually flying in the drone. The danger, however, is that it also gives the operator the ability to fly the drone beyond so-called visual line of sight. That is, the drone can be flown well beyond the range at which the operator would be able to see the drone with his or her own eyes from the ground. In this situation, the drone could be accidentally flown into somebody or something if the video link fails or the camera's field of view doesn't show a potential hazard. Before the development of FPV, this wasn't a problem. The operator on the ground had to be able to see the aircraft in order to fly it. As a result, the aircraft was always relatively close to the operator. Now, the RC hobby industry has fully embraced these technologies. And to be fair, the technologies have enabled many, many more people to participate in the hobby than were able to in the past. The technology that enables us to place phone calls, send text messages, surf the internet, and take pictures with our cell phones also enables the mass production of consumer electronic drones. However, when the cost to fly is measured in the dozens or a few hundreds of dollars, with no sweat equity involved in the construction and very little effort involved in learning how to fly, the potential for abuse is significant. Safe and prudent practices dictate that a hobby drone not be flown beyond visual line of sight. That's the case even if the operator is using FPV. In fact, best practices state that another person be present to keep their eye on the drone while the operator is flying it with the FPV system. This is specifically so that the other person can keep an eye out for potential hazards. However, at this point, it would appear that the FAA's intent is to do away with hobby FPV flying altogether. Now, along with all this, the FAA is under pressure to develop the regulations to permit the commercial use of civilian drones. This is a significant challenge. The high-tech wizardry that makes it fairly easy to fly drones also makes it possible for these drones to be flown unsafely. The internet is filled with videos of drones being flown close to people, cars, boats, buildings, even other aircraft. These things give the regulators pretty darn good reason to restrict their usage. And this, of course, much to the dismay of the vast majority of hobbyists out there that have absolutely no intention to abuse the privilege. Let's hope the regulators find the right balance between setting reasonable restrictions and permitting the freedom to enjoy and innovate. I'm Mike Brosh. Thanks for watching.